Contrary to popular belief, these Corvettes are not perfect cars. But I'm going to kind of go against the grain here, and not just to go against what other people say, but I do not think you should modify these cars. Now, looking at my car, you could tell it is literally bone stock. There's not a single mod on it. And I know a lot of people are going to think that it's probably going to be about resale value or things like that, where I don't think that really matters if you're planning on keeping the car, and you should make it to how you like it. I mostly am against performance mods on the LT1. Now, don't get me wrong, the LT1 is not a bad engine. It is in fact the same engine that is in the Z06, just the Z06 has a supercharger and has upgraded internals. I do think that this is a beautiful car to modify the appearance of, but with very light things that add to the OEM body styling, not something aggressive like, you know, hood cut vents and quarter panel vents. Like, I don't feel like those are needed. Those don't look good. I don't like the DIY body kits on the C7, the wide bodies that aren't the factory wide body. Replicas are fine, but overall, appearance modifications I think are fine. Those are completely fine. But in terms of engine, whether you have a C7, Z51, a Stingray, or a Grand Sport, we all have the same engine, aside from the dry sump being a little different. GM has spent millions developing this car, so it all works together. I feel like if you want to put power down and you want more power, there's very few mods that I would do to do it. And I was gonna make a mod guide video, but I think I'm just gonna cover it in this video instead, because there's very few mods. It's literally like 3 mods that I would do to this car. Other than that, do not go boosting an LT1. The LT4 has forged internals. The LT1, if you are boosting it, it makes no sense, because by the time you are done doing everything to it, you could have just got a Z06. It's very rare that you're gonna beat the price of a Z06 once you start trying to modify one of these LT1s. And once you do get basically to an area where the LT4 is at, you're gonna have dumped a bunch of money into it, to a car that doesn't function like a Z06 would. I think for Stingray owners, it makes a little bit more sense to go the modded route than the Grand Sport owner. Grand Sport owners, I feel like we're like right there already at Z06 prices. We could have just gotten one if we just saved up a little bit more in most cases, but in other cases, you know what you're buying when you buy the Grand Sport, and it is something that is, you know, more for the corners and track ready rather than, you know, 650 horsepower that you're not ever going to use on a back road or a track. So it makes 0 sense to buy the Z06 for you. But in the odd cases where there are Grand Sport owners trying to boost their Grand Sport, the only other reason I can think of is you have a rare color like I do, and you don't want to pay the premium of a Z06 having this color, right? So if you were to find this on a Grand Sport, even though it's still going to be a premium as a Grand Sport, it probably would be cheaper to just modify the LT1 or even LT4 swap it on a Grand Sport than it would be to get an entirely new car. The thing is, even if you're an amazing mechanic, you're not going to be able to reproduce GM quality. Now, GM quality isn't the best, but you're not going to be able to reproduce it. And the more you add to it, the less livable the car becomes. At least in my opinion, when you start lowering it, doing a bunch of things to the performance, the car becomes a pain to drive, especially if you like go the cam route, stuff like that. I know we love our chop, but especially for a manual driver like myself, it'd be terrible for drivability daily. That's one thing I learned with my Mustang when I lowered it. It became a pain to get into places, and it became less fun to drive. Did it look good? Yes, but it was way less fun to drive. That's another thing with these cars is I don't know why you would lower one of these cars. Like, unless you have a daily and you're never going to be taking this car out, basically that's the only time I'd make it lower. It's already so low. It just doesn't have the best fitment, which you could just change your wheels, which you have to do on the wide body ones anyway, and get some better tires, and they could fill up the gap a bit more. As for Stingray owners, you guys have a lighter car, so you could go the route of building your car, but I still don't think it's worth it, because there's just better platforms for speed at that price range, like a Coyote. I know you won't have the corners, but if you're building just for power, you're not taking corners anyway, at least not seriously. The Coyote's able to withstand the boost better, and I would definitely just go the Mustang route if you're planning on modifying for power, rather than getting a Corvette and just doing unspeakable things to it and kind of just, you know, ruining the car and putting so much money into it, blowing it up, that you could have just gotten a Z06. It kind of doesn't make sense. I really do think that Z06 is the best trim to buy if you're just planning on doing highway runs and like just pushing straight power. So we have a car where if you modify it, the cost doesn't make sense because you could have just got a Z06, which can actually handle the power. The reliability will never be good, so that doesn't make sense. And in most cases, the drivability in the day-to-day life will not be good on these either. It kind of doesn't make sense to buy a car like this. Also, if you're planning on boosting, I feel like another great platform, if you do want to stay in the Corvettes and you want that straight line speed, would be and you do want to stay in the Corvette bloodline, it's going to be a C6 Grand Sport. It has the LS3, which it's kind of like a baby ZR1, where the ZR1 has forged internals, but it actually makes more sense, and there's more research and it's easier to do on an LS3 than it would be on an LT1. Because with the LT1 we have direct fuel injectors, which basically means that our fuel system is super expensive to deal with and modify compared to that of an LS3, which just makes the LS3 a way better engine to one, do work on, because it's just easier, but also it's also a lot cheaper. So if you want to build a race car, do not start with an LT1. It's a great engine, but it's just, you have so many other better options out there where it just doesn't make sense. The LT1, especially the Grand Sport, is a great track car. It's a great car for the back roads, and it's for people who like taking corners. It is not worth to build this car into a straight line demon, or even just to have a little bit more power on the track. I feel like there's a lot more of improvements you can have on the track learning how to drive at NA than when you boost it. But the mods I would do to this, the first one would be headers with an exhaust, simply for sound. It's really easy horsepower gains with this vehicle. It's something I feel like should be done on this car, but I am not a catless person myself. I do not think you should go catless completely. I don't think you should do secondary cats on your car, but I do think you should have like some high flow cats or something that still restricts the bad air at least a little bit, so you don't get out of your car smelling terrible and just getting dizzy when you're stuck in traffic. Not a fun thing for drivability, and like, there is a horsepower difference, but I don't think that horsepower is worth it. Another thing I would do is taking out the air intake. That one's self-explanatory. Adds a little bit of noise, but overall just adds a little bit more horsepower. Now, I would do this preferably all at once, because with the headers, you do need a tune. So some intakes don't need it, so you can combine that with the rest of the exhaust, but with the headers, you do want to do these with this next mod, and that is a intake manifold. Now, adding these mods together will get you over 500 horsepower. I'm pretty sure you'd be at maybe 500 to the wheel, right around that area. And honestly, I feel like that's completely perfect for what this car needs. Now, as for my recommendations on the intake manifold, there is, in my opinion, two routes you can do, which is the Air Force MSD air intake. I'll pop a picture of it up. That one's really expensive. There is one intake manifold that outperforms it, and that is from a C8 Corvette, the LT2, and you also can put on its engine cover, which looks really cool. However, it does not clear our hood on the Corvettes. It only clears the hood on Camaros. So it kind of sucks because we don't have the hood, so you would either need to make some sort of cuts to get it to fit, or you could get a Z06 hood and kind of paint match it, I guess, and let it like clear. Or if you're planning on wrapping your car, something like that, that is probably the route I'd go, because at the end of the day, that one is a lot more cheaper, but it's not as cheap as having your car repainted. So it's kind of like 50-50 if you could figure out how to DIY it. I don't know if anyone has yet. I just know that is an option. I do not know if anyone has. Probably gonna do more research about that actually after this video. I'm not at that point with my car yet. But those are the only performance mods I do. I wouldn't even do a cam. I wouldn't, like, as much as it would be cool to have the car chop, it's just not worth it for a car that I'm gonna live with day to day. I feel like if you're gonna build a race car, that's different, but I would still go with the Z06. I don't think the LT1 makes sense unless you want an NA race car, which in that sense, I think you're doing the right thing getting the LT1. But I do have a manual, so I could switch out the shifter. That is probably the only other mod I would do, aside from everything else. But I like the shifter. It feels fine for me, so I'm kind of happy with how the car is. I'm probably gonna do the performance mods I've mentioned and that's basically it. That's where I'm stopping. But if you're planning on making like an NA C7 build, that's the only other reason I would see that you would like fully go into this engine, but into this platform. But I would not go the boosted route, because at that point, if you don't have like that goal of you're trying to stay NA, then you should have just got a Z06. But I'm hoping, like me, a lot of you bought this car because you know what it is, you want it to be NA, and you bought it because you're trying to go push those back roads, which I definitely need to post a video of me hitting some. So if that is something you want to see, let me know in the comments. I really appreciate your guys' support in the last video, but I'm going to go ahead and see y'all in the next one. Toodles, bye.